The significance of inscriptions on war memorials are of paramount importance, and therefore it's crucial that they're legible. Legibility is key. It can vary from letter to letter, name to name, within a single face, and on different faces. All materials, including stone, decay over time, especially when subject to prolonged exposure to the weather. The rate of deterioration will vary according to the materials and method of construction, the degree of exposure, and the prevailing environment. Many memorials are multifaceted. Erosion will vary across different elevations. It's important to look at the overall integrity. It's often necessary to accept some loss of unity between different faces or areas of exposure. The condition of the stone will help determine any conservation treatments. It's important to assess and record the condition of a war memorial, focusing on the stone and the inscriptions. A visual and tactile approach is also essential, fitting for friable material, tapping for sound of lamination. The style, font and execution should be noted. Raking light and spraying lightly with water can help distinguish the lettering, and taking a rubbing is a quick way to record it. Assess the legibility. Can all of the inscription be read? What's the condition of the stone and the inscriptions? Are there any specific reasons for any deterioration? Is there anything that can be done to alleviate any deterioration? You should aim to categorise the condition of the inscription. Good. The inscriptions are legible. Fair. A few letters, a name or particular areas have faded, weathered, eroded and are difficult to read. But overall, the inscription is still legible. In painting or gilding may have been significantly lost. Poor. The stone is decaying with much of the inscriptions obscured or faded. Very bad. Much or all of the inscriptions are barely or no longer legible. This surveying should be undertaken on an annual basis, taking photographs to compare any changes. Once the condition of the inscriptions has been determined, the conservation should be considered and the range of options for any treatment can be examined. This step-by-step approach should be taken to make sure conservation decisions and any practical interventions are appropriate. There may be several options for conservation treatment, and these should be weighed up and discussed with the custodian, the statutory authorities and any other parties to decide on the appropriate way forward. This should help the most suitable approach to be resolved and expectations managed. Most war memorials not only have historic significance, but also great significance to the local community. All memorials are important, but some are listed or designated, which gives them additional protection. Draw up a method statement which outlines the scope of the works, including processes, techniques, equipment and materials. Any works carried out to a war memorial should adhere to the following principles. Minimum intervention. Only undertaking works that really need to be done and the least interventive to achieve the desired aims. Work should aim to maximise the life expectancy of the memorial whilst retaining as much of the original fabric, removing as little of the original memorial as possible. Repairs should use materials that are the same as or compatible with the original. Work should aim for reversibility, meaning they can be removed without affecting the original fabric. However, this is often not feasible. Work shouldn't prevent repeated or other interventions in the future. They should only use materials and techniques appropriate to the original fabric. All work should be recorded and made available to others. The aim is for the war memorial to look cared for, not as new. In some cases, cleaning alone can make the inscriptions more legible. If soiling or biological growth is obscuring the lettering, then gentle cleaning will increase the legibility, and this may be sufficient. This should always be the first stage and subsequent decisions only made after this has been completed. War memorials should only be cleaned if the soiling is causing harm or rendering the inscriptions illegible, not simply to make it look like new. Too frequent cleaning of a war memorial can also lead to more rapid resoiling. The gentlest cleaning option should be used to remove damaging soiling and improve legibility of inscriptions. Cleaning with water using a natural or nylon bristle brush, not metallic, can be a very effective option. It's easy, cheap and a highly controllable method to sensitively clean lettering. Cleaning first also allows the extent of other repair work required to be properly assessed. Here, careful cleaning has revealed the remains of gilding, which wasn't originally evident and could have been lost if harsher cleaning methods had been used. Steam cleaning by experienced practitioners provides a relatively quick option, but it's less controllable and can result in an over-cleaned surface. Jet washers and pressure washers are usually too aggressive and are often unsuitable for cleaning historic stone surfaces. Other cleaning methods, such as wet and dry air abrasives or chemical cleaning methods, can be used in exceptional circumstances when more gentle methods are not effective, but the risk of causing further damage during this process needs to be prevented. Surface finishes such as painting and gilding are often found on inside lettering. These may have been originally or subsequently applied as a means of increasing legibility. Paint types and colours vary. Letters have often been repainted black, but it isn't uncommon to discover the original paint was a different colour. In some cases, it may be necessary to take a small sample of the original paint to establish the type and colour. The lettering may have been repainted, and so the surface colour may not always be the same as the original. Some older paints may contain lead, so awareness of this is essential so the necessary health and safety precautions can be taken. Loss of the paint or gilding will tend to reduce legibility, so in-painting and re-gilding can improve it. These options should be considered in preference to sharpening or recutting the inscriptions, since these treatments are reversible and retreatable. If the inscription wasn't originally painted or gilded, statutory permissions may be needed, since these are a change to the original design. The paint should be applied very carefully so it doesn't bleed or smudge beyond the edges of the letters. It must be carried out with due regard to the surface, the style of lettering, and any original paint colour. This takes patience and an experienced hand. A clay barrier can be applied, which will stop any paint leaching into the stone. Since this is water soluble, it can be carefully removed afterwards. Acrylic, potassium silicate, oil or enamel may be chosen, depending on the stone type, condition and exposure. It isn't always necessary to inpaint the whole inscription, but touching in certain areas may be all that's required to make the inscription more legible. More than one coat of paint is often necessary, and each coat needs to dry before the next is applied. This is an example of re-gilding on polished granite, where the condition of the existing gilding has been lost. Apply the base coat, which may match the colour of the stone. This helps to fill any pores or pits, smoothing out any unevenness. Apply gilding size or signwriter's enamel. Apply gold leaf, which should be at least 23 1/3 carat quality. In general, gold paint isn't suitable, but if minor touching in is to be carried out, acrylic paints can be used. When dry, excess gold leaf can be carefully removed to leave it within the incised letters. On hard, polished or honed granite, the excess paint can be carefully scraped away with a window scraper and finished with a very fine abrasive, such as a cuttlefish bone. On softer stones, the size and gilding needs to be applied very precisely, since scraping nor rubbing back is an option. If cleaning hasn't made the inscription more legible and in-painting isn't feasible, what options do you have to improve the legibility? It's tempting to go for complete recutting to produce a pristine and new inscription, but there are good conservation reasons why this isn't always the best or most appropriate option. You need to understand when this option is appropriate and its limitations. Inscriptions can only be recut a finite number of times, so it should only be undertaken when absolutely necessary and as a last resort. So, decisions about recutting need to consider the longer-term survival of the memorial into the future, not just how it looks today. Is it possible for the letters to be recut? Is the stone sufficiently robust to allow it to be worked back to a sound surface? It may be a poor quality piece of stone that cannot be recut. Friable stone is very difficult to treat. Consolidation treatments to preserve the stone can often cause further problems and are rarely a suitable solution. The lettering may be of a design that is not possible to recut. This is often the case with letters cut in relief. Was the letter carved by a renowned artist? If so, it may not be appropriate to recut it. If sharpening or recutting are options, what are the key points when planning the work? Firstly, the original style must be reproduced, so the reinstated inscription should stay authentic to the original design and execution. The minimum amount of sharpening or recutting should be undertaken to make the inscription legible. It may not be necessary to recut the entire inscription, but certain letters can be sharpened and deepened to make the inscription more legible. This must always be done by an experienced letter cutter, and it's essential to ask for a sample of their conservation work to make sure they're competent to execute the carving to the required standard. Since original inscriptions will have been cut by hand, pneumatic and abrasive power tools such as sandblasting are inappropriate.
The surface of the stone is quite badly weathered, particularly towards the bottom. We see quite pitted, broken surface. We've begun by cleaning it with a specialist cleaning process, which is very, very gentle. It's not a case of recutting it completely. It is just a case of sharpening up what's required just to preserve it for that little bit longer. It's difficult in this instance with the type of stone it is, being so pitted and friable, to do any major surface preparation on it. The gentle cleaning process is about all you can get away with. If you touch it with carborundums and abrasives, then you very, very quickly take much, much more of the surface away. It would damage the lettering that's already there. We're quite fortunate in this instance. All the names on this memorial are recorded in the church on a board of remembrance. So those names which were illegible can be cross-referenced. So the next stage is to set about carving, and to do that we need to mark the letters out. I would first describe some line onto the stone using a marker pencil, white crayon in this because it's contrasting to the stone, and then to mark out as best I can the existing form of the letter. As the surface is bad, the letters are wider in parts, disappear in parts, so it's a case of looking through the existing inscription to get a flavour of the style of the alphabet that we're going to work with. Once we've decided on those shapes, it's a straightforward process of drawing them on. The next step then would be to cut in a centre line, and that is the important part really. That's what holds a letter up. It's, if you like, from a lettering point of view, an internal skeleton of a letter. As the surface wears back again in future, which it inevitably will do, that V in the bottom will stay in the bottom for someone else to pick up on in future years and then cut back into the surface wherever it ends up. The final stage, once I've cut, will be a kind of an inspection process really, which will quite simply involve brushing the dust out, seeing how it looks without the dust in, because that's how it will be seen in a day or two once it's been rained on, and then going over the letters and just sharpening up the odd little bits on the surface just to try and sharpen the letters as best we can. In the touching up process that we are doing, we have to cut into the existing surface, so we're never ever going to get a really sharp looking letter. It's more about re-establishing the V-cut so that we get a shadow cast so that it's legible. We have a responsibility when it comes to conservation to preserve the monuments for future generations. It's not about putting in our own artistic input really, it's about a continuation of what's been done before.
Replacing the original inscription with a completely new one on new stone is the most invasive option. It should only be considered when other options are not feasible, as there are a range of technical and design issues to be resolved. It may be that cutting out one area will cause damage to other areas. An option may be to conserve the memorial and to have the details of those commemorated recorded elsewhere. If new stonework is a solution, then the replacement stone should match the original, like for like. Availability can be an issue as many quarries are now closed. If it's no longer available, another suitable alternative will have to be sourced. It's not advisable to introduce materials that would not have been there originally, such as granite to a limestone memorial, which are very different to the original design and may cause differential deterioration. Archival research may be needed to identify the details of the memorial. A specialist, such as a geologist, may also be needed to identify the original stone and propose a suitable one for replacement. Historic England publication on identifying and sourcing stone for historic building repair and the Strategic Stone Study website may prove useful to help with this. Links to these can be found on the Historic England website. Don't settle for a stone that just looks like the original. It may weather differently and could cause further damage to the original stonework. Again, the inscriptions should be drawn and cut by hand in the style that the original inscriptions were. Plaques of other materials should not be placed on top of or instead of illegible inscriptions. This can lead to physical or chemical problems as the new material interacts with the old and traps moisture, which can accelerate deterioration, causing new problems. This is also a change to the original design of the memorial and doesn't follow the design chosen by those who erected it. So locating new signage should be adjacent to the memorial, not physically attached to it.